I'm 30. I have 3 little girls. I was with Chase for 6 years on and off, more on than off. He said, I'll make it where you have nowhere to go. And he did. And that's like, everybody wants to say, why didn't you leave? Why couldn't you get out? He made me feel like nobody loved me but him. I remember it all. And I didn't remember it all until I walked in the trailer and seen the blood everywhere. And then it come back to me, every bit of it. He made me sit on the bottom of the steps, right where he was sitting. And I was so scared to death he was gonna kick me in my face. Scared to death. Because that would have really probably knocked me out, which might have been better, but he made me sit on my hands. And every time I tried to, he would hit me harder. He gets me over into the field, and well, at first I'm walking beside him, and I'm barely walking because I could barely stand up. I was so lightheaded. He's like, you better keep up. You better not fall behind. And I'd fall behind a little bit, and he'd hit me, knock me down. And I knew when I got to the other side of that field what was gonna happen. I was thinking to myself, oh my God, I'm about to die. I'm for real about to die, this is it. And I was coming to terms with it. When I think about it, oh my God, I almost died. And I lived. I don't want anybody else to go through that. That was so horrible. I seen a car coming, and I don't know who it was, but I wish to God I could find out and thank them. Because I seen it, and I was like, oh my God, it's the cops. It's the cops, Chase, oh my God. And he fell to the ground face first, laying flat. And I took off running. I ain't never ran so fast in my life. And I don't even know how I did. Because I could barely breathe. I couldn't see. I couldn't even walk straight, but I ran. And I ran literally for my life. And I remember putting my hands on my face. I did like this, and I looked down, and all I seen was blood poured out. You could have took my shirt off and wringed it out in a bucket. It was so covered in blood, and when I did that, I guess from sitting there, my adrenaline had slowed down, and the pain hit me. I felt like somebody had a torch and a hot chisel on my face. I felt like somebody was, it was the most excruciating pain ever in my life that I've ever felt. You can live, you can get away, and there's always somebody that will take you in, that will do for you, that will help you help yourself. Always. There's people out there that care even when you don't know they're there. They're there, I promise. You just reach out. Don't be scared to reach out. There's not just him. A whole world of people out there care. And I didn't love myself 3 weeks ago, and today I wouldn't. I love myself more than anything in this world. And I'm happy every day that I wake up, and I know that I'm loved because I'm supported by so many people that I didn't even know existed. There's people out there that care.
Before trouble started with your boyfriend, then fiance,
Yes.
how did he treat you?
I think everybody was swept off their feet when they first meet anybody, right? It was amazing. It was, again, he didn't live in the same state with me, so it was a long distance thing. And every time I got picked up at the airport, I had a little bitty gift. You know, it could be a small teddy bear all the way to some flowers. But every time, you know, we did anything, I felt like a queen. And I think because of the way I grew up, I've always made decisions all of my life, and he allowed me to relax, and he made all of the decisions. Being a single mother, I had to make decisions for both my son and him all the time. So when we were together, it was just me relaxing. Again, being in a different state, I didn't have to worry about household chores. It was just fun. It was relaxing. I felt like a queen. I felt like a princess. Everything was what you would expect when you come into a relationship.
And so, at least initially, this guy was, you said a queen. I mean, he's treating you properly. There's no sign of any issues.
Yeah, and what's funny is because we are both in the fitness industry, we both ate the same, we both worked out the same. We were both into making sure we ate right at the right time. It wasn't a struggle in that. I had nothing other than when I was in Houston and he was in his state, there was some struggles of insecurity that would he give me, but in my mind it was just like, well, if we were in the same city, he wouldn't have these struggles, right? He wouldn't be insecure of where I was going or what I was doing. And at the time I'm a sales rep, and so evening dinners were required for us to go out with our, with different people, social events, networking events, and so insecurities would step in, but I got it. Like, he was far, far away and he couldn't be the man that he wanted to be because he was in a different state. So I just made myself think that, okay, we can fix it. How do we fix it?
So your Prince Charming turned out to be anything but.
I think he was a Prince Charming on the outside, but his core was completely evil.
And in hindsight, which is always 20/20, what were the red flags? What were the issues that you were seeing with him that was an indication that this guy could become abusive?
So when we weren't together, he would always call me on FaceTime if I were at home. Whether we were talking on FaceTime or not, it was FaceTime, and we would sit and watch a movie, would breathe. Again, thinking that if we were dating, we'd be in the same room. He would constantly call me, but I was just thinking, oh my God, he loves me. He's going to call me all the time. It's
constant
constantly
attention.
Yeah, just a ton of attention.
Always wanting to know where you were?
Yes.
And that never bothers you?
No, and again, I played it off that was his insecurities, and for me to help him with his insecurities and for him to gain the trust within our relationship, I gave it to him. I answered the phone when it was appropriate. I texted him back when it was appropriate. I sat on FaceTime with him. Everybody has their insecurities, and I played into his.
What traps do you now see that you would tell women to avoid?
Listen to your gut, especially women. We are all given an intuition, and the intuition's called from whomever your higher power is, your Lord, your God, your Buddha, whoever that is, right? Women are given intuitions for reasons, and follow that. Follow that, because all of the calls that you're given, all the text message and the attention you're probably wanting and needing and getting are some signs that I didn't even see. I mean, eventually I woke up to a small, very, very small room with cameras watching me 24 hours a day, and I had a tracking device in my car, and I had no idea.
So wait a minute. There were cameras in the room where you were staying with him?
Eventually all of this came up. My intuition told me to go and check his phone one night. So I checked his phone, and I opened it up, and the first app that popped up were cameras that were led to the house. So he had an app on his phone that he could see inside the house.
So he was checking on you?
I would say yes, only because there's cameras in the house and I'm only the only person in the house, right? And I started thinking back. I was like, well, the only time he would call me was when I was in the bathroom, and apparently there's no camera in the bathroom. So yeah, I had a tracking device put in my car because he said he wanted to change out the speaker, or change out the radio, and a tracking device was put in my car. And then I woke up one day seeing an app that he was watching me throughout the house throughout the day.
How many times were you beaten?
3. I'm running down a street, and for some reason I went up some stairs and I flipped and I fell, and he got on top of me, and all I can remember is he was choking me. And I'm being thrown against a sofa and a lamp, and everything's just flying. All I keep remembering is my arms are fully straight, and I just keep kicking my legs out, like, just get off of me. And here's what's the craziest part, is I can't remember being hit. Like, I don't remember the pain of being hit. I just remember I just need to survive. Like, I just need to get home. I just want to get home. 3 months of him courting me, gifts, calls, beggings, forgiveness, give him a chance. He's broken. He'll never do it again. Every word that you can actually find that every woman has heard that has been beaten can be put on that list.
And you stayed?
And I thought he changed. Again, for the second time. I jump out of bed, and it's him chasing me all around the house, pushing and pulling and tugging and hitting me. And the only reason he stopped is because I stopped and I said my rosary. I stopped and I prayed my rosary. And he never touched me again.
Did you ever tell anyone what was happening to you?
So we only had a friend, a couple that were married, great Catholic couple, that knew about it. They were there at the first beating.
Did you ever tell family, friends,
No.
girlfriends? Never said anything about it?
No.
Did you ever consider calling the police?
I was ashamed. I didn't want to tell my girlfriends that our beautiful selves were amazingly unbroken and a piece of bunk. I didn't want to tell them this was fake because behind the doors he's beating me. I didn't want to tell anybody that. I was fearful. I didn't want to report it. I didn't want the backlash of it. And I think a lot of that is why women don't report it. It's one, they feel like they have nowhere to go and there's no one to help them because of the backlash that could happen because of who that person is and who we're not, right? And then you're going to judge me. Everybody in America is about to judge me. Everybody in Houston's going to judge me. It takes a strong person to open up and to be allowed in to know that what's going on. Because there's a whole lot of people out there, whether they're married or dating, that there's a lot of things going on behind those doors that none of us even know that our best friends are dealing with. So when I went to the women's shelter, I went to group therapy first. And I closed my eyes and I listened to all their stories. And I could place myself in everyone's story from the time that they were being hit, spoken to, pulled on, thrown around, and the words that were being spoken to them, I heard them. The only difference was the circumstances. That was it. What I learned about myself was I wasn't alone.
If you want to plead guilty or not guilty on those city court charges at this time?
I'm gonna have to talk to my lawyer first.
The man accused of killing his ex-girlfriend in Oakland remains in jail in South Carolina tonight. Police arrested Matthew Darby in Myrtle Beach early today, ending a 3-day manhunt. Good evening, everyone. Darby will be brought back to Pittsburgh later this month.
He was captured after allegedly trying to break into somebody's home. Darby's arrest came just hours after he was charged with the death of Pitt student Alina Shaheed. She was found dead in her off-campus apartment on Sunday. Police say that Darby brutally beat her with a claw hammer and 2 knives. Detectives allegedly recovered the weapons from a storm drain near the crime scene.
Weeks before her murder, Shaheed was granted a protection from abuse order against Darby.
Tonight, a domestic violence expert argues while PFAs are important, in some cases, they're not enough. Amy Wattis continues our coverage tonight. Amy.
Good evening, and I spoke with a domestic violence expert this evening who says the alleged behavior that Matthew Darby displayed towards Alina Shaheed was control, which is a sign of an abusive relationship. And she says that some people will do all they can to get that control back.
Alina Shaheed asked a judge last month for a protection from abuse order against Matthew Darby after the ex-boyfriend allegedly broke into her apartment. She told the judge she was sleeping when Darby climbed up the gutter and broke into the second-floor window. Shaheed went on to say, in part, "It was nothing malicious, nothing. He didn't want to harm me. He just wanted to speak to me. I did leave him a few weeks prior to that, and I guess he did not like the fact that I asked him to leave me alone." She told the judge she just wanted to be left alone and said she didn't think Darby would hurt her.
She may not have believed at that point in time that there could have been any harm or threat to that.
Stacey De Las Alas with Crisis Center North says a lot of people miss the warning signs in abusive relationships.
Oftentimes, warning signs can be excessive jealousy. They can be controlling things, but in young or early onsets of relationships, that might feel flattering at first.
At one point, Judge Spurgeon asked Shaheed why she was afraid of Darby. She said, quote, "He's very controlling." De Las Alas urges women to call a confidential crisis hotline if they feel threatened.
Getting their perspective on what that situation looks like, the degree of control, the degree of fear that's involved in the relationship.
De La Salle says PFAs are always an option, but human behavior isn't predictable.
There's still an ability that somebody could charge outside of that and decide to break a law and fatally harm someone. There are many instances where the judicial and the legal process in PFA definitely works.
And Judge Spurgeon told Cheyette he felt more concern for her safety than he feels that she did for herself, so he did grant her that PFA. For now, a list of hotlines, crisis hotlines, we have all of that information for you on our website at kdka.com. We're live tonight. Amy Wattis, KDKA TV News.
And I don't have nothing anymore. I don't have fame. I don't have money. After the Super Bowls is probably the worst time I ever had. It's when I was the loneliest, when I was the most depressed. It's usually when the domestic violence was fueled.
In the late 80s, Vance Johnson was known for his brash personality as a member of the Broncos' famed Three Amigos, Denver's talented young receiving corps.
Playing football and being pretty much successful, you can do what you want to do and not worry about people wondering what kind of person is he, you know.
He was also known to the women in his life, the Broncos, and local law enforcement as a man who beat women, long before the Ray Rice elevator video provoked a public outcry.
When I watched Ray hit his wife on that television screen, I thought about how fast my career would have ended if someone would have had a camera in my house when I was being abusive to my wife at the time.
What would cause you to get so angry?
I was the one that all these ladies, women wanted to talk to and date. And so how dare someone challenge that? And that was pretty much all it took for me to get angry. And being jealous.
It was jealousy, Johnson says, that caused him to fly into a rage when he thought his first wife, Angela, had cheated on him with a teammate.
I ended up pushing her against a closet door, knocked her out. I carried her to the bathroom, and I literally put my hand in the toilet and started flipping the water out of there to get in her face.
Johnson says the pain he inflicted on women didn't always cause physical harm, as he recalled an argument with his second wife.
I was abusive in so many different ways. I tore up things, and I took a golf club to her vehicle and just beat the crap out of it, just to see the pain in her eyes. And saw how emotionally she was just so damaged and so torn. I feel like I don't even deserve to have a good life now.
Why?
Because of all the pain that I caused, all the damage.
What do you feel?
Really ashamed, but willing for people to call me a wife beater and an animal, just so I can let people know that the problem with domestic violence is real.
Yeah, appreciate your writing too. Thank you.
Johnson says he witnessed his father beat his mother, something he recounted in his memoir published during his playing days. But Johnson wouldn't get into any details with us, saying his parents are still married and that the abuse has since stopped. When asked to comment on Johnson's recollections, Johnson's parents declined.
What you saw is what you know. I was actually the same exact person, and even worse, because here I am, this celebrity, so I felt like I was entitled.
In his 7th NFL season, after local media reported police were summoned to Johnson's residence numerous times for domestic disputes, Johnson was arrested in 1991 after ramming his car into an estranged wife's vehicle.
What did the Broncos do when they knew you had this issue?
I remember going into Dan Reeves' office and him asking me, you know, there's been a lot of things going on, Mr. Johnson, with this domestic stuff. Really need to get some help, son. So if there's anything that we can offer, I would just say, I'm fine, Coach. It's something that I'm dealing with, but there's not a problem.
And that would be enough for him?
Yeah, that would be enough for him.
Reeves told Outside the Lines he doesn't recall having any conversations with Johnson about his abusive behavior. Johnson pleaded guilty to a charge of criminal mischief and was sentenced to a week in jail and a year of probation. He was also ordered to attend domestic violence counseling sessions.
They were so hard for me. There were so many arguments with my counselor. And I would get up and I would leave, but then I would go back in and listen again.
I saw a man who really would like to have a real relationship and who was struggling mightily to figure out how to do that.
Michael Lindsay, a psychotherapist who specialized in working with violent offenders, was Johnson's counselor before he retired. Johnson granted permission for Lindsay to talk with us about their sessions.
You just couldn't afford to lose anymore. And at the moment you can't afford to lose anything more, chaos, death, or change. Those are your choices.
Johnson continued to see Lindsay for about 5 years.
If you just go in with an open mind and allow everything that's inside of you as a child to come out, you'll find where the problem was, and that's when you can start healing.
Left and walked away from an opportunity to do some stuff for the Broncos.
Johnson says he hasn't physically abused a woman in 2 decades. A search of criminal records in the areas where he's lived since then reveal no charges of domestic abuse against him.
What should people think of you?
He was a batterer, he was abusive, he was not a nice person. He tried to screw his whole life up, he hurt a lot of people, and he's here now to say, look what I did to my life. Don't do that to yours.